Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to The Real Report. I've got an interesting one. We're going to be talking about Vladimir Putin's attempted assassination, allegedly. A really interesting message from the previous president of Russia, some things out of the UK, Iran, and in the highlight today, Turkey. And of course, we have another aid package from the Senate that, you guessed it, is going to Taiwan, as Americans here struggle to afford basic everyday things. Here in the background, we've got some B-roll footage for you out of Poland, as they have purchased 250 M1 Abrams tanks. So, quick side note on that out of the article: Poland has become the linchpin of NATO's eastern defense, recognizing its important geostrategic position. The U.S. has deployed significant forces to the country, including potentially deploying an armored brigade combat team, ABCT, and the pre-position equipment for a second ABCT. Acquisition of hundreds of Abrams tanks is more than modernizing the Polish army. It is about enhancing the interoperability and sustainment of NATO forces. Polish armored forces and the U.S. ABCTs deployed to the country will now be able to cooperate more closely. So that's what that footage in the background is from just the last 2 weeks. And one final piece of business: we have reached 200 subscribers, so thank you guys for that milestone. 800 more to go. Getting into the article, Medvedev issues apocalyptic warning to West over Ukraine. The former Russian president used a Book of Revelations quote to comment on Kiev's security threat. Treaty Western half-wits, he calls them, from stupid think tanks, are leading their countries down the road of nuclear Armageddon with their hybrid war against Moscow. Former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev wrote on his Telegram channel, endlessly funneling weapons and support to Ukraine while pretending not to be directly involved in the conflict will not work, added the deputy chair of the Russian Security Council. The security guarantees proposal, unveiled by Kiev on Tuesday, is really a prologue to the Third World War, said Medvedev, calling it a hysterical appeal to Western countries engaged in a proxy war against Russia. Now, these things are always interesting to read because there's usually a shred of truth, i.e. the highlight in blue here, Western half-wits from stupid think tanks. If the West continues its, quote, unrestrained pumping of the Kiev regime with the most dangerous types of weapons, Russia's military campaign will move to the next level where, quote, visible boundaries and potential predictability of actions by the parties to the conflict will be erased and the conflict will take on a life of its own. As wars always do, he argued. And then, here's from Revelations, where he was writing, or before citing it, I mean. And then the Western nations will not be able to sit in their clean homes, laughing at how they carefully weaken Russia by proxy. Everything will be on fire around them. Their people will harvest their grief in full. The land will be on fire, and the concrete will melt. Medvedev wrote before citing a Bible verse from Revelations 9:18. Yet still the narrow-minded politicians and their stupid think tanks, thoughtfully twirling a glass of wine in their hands, talk about how they can deal with us without entering into a direct war. Dull idiots with a classical education, he wrote. His comments were prompted by Kiev's publication of a security treaty proposal developed under the tutelage of former NATO secretary. The draft envisions the U.S. and its allies guaranteeing Ukraine's pre-2014 borders with weapons, ammunition, financial assistance, and training, as well as committing to maintaining sanctions against Russia for as long as Kiev wants and handing over any confiscated Russian property to Ukraine. I just thought his warning here was a good prelude into Putin's limousine hit by loud bang and possible attack, but Russian leader is left unharmed. Point I want to stress, according to anti-Kremlin sources who revealed health scares earlier. Breaking news: same thing. Rumors continue to surface regarding Putin's health as they do attempts on his life. The attempts to manage the media aside, Putin's daughter was recently taken out by a car bomb last month, a point I had actually forgotten. According to the account, the left front wheel of Putin's car was hit by a loud bang. Smoke quickly followed, but the car was driven to safety. Putin was unharmed in the incident. However, it is understood that a number of arrests have been made by the security services. Amongst those that have disappeared are a number of his bodyguards amid claims the president's movements were compromised. The insider claims that Putin was traveling in a decoy motorcade with growing fears for his safety. He is said to have been traveling in the third of the 5 vehicles. And supposedly how the scenario went down On the way to the residence, a few kilometers away, the first escort car was blocked by an ambulance, and the second escort car drove around without stopping due to the sudden obstacle. During the detour of the obstacle, a loud bang sounded from the front left wheel, followed by heavy smoke. Subsequently, the body of a man was found driving the ambulance, which blocked the first car from the motorcade. The head of the president's bodyguard service and several other people have been suspended and are in custody. A narrow circle of people knew about the movement of the president, and all of them were from the Presidential Security Service. After the incident, 3 of them disappeared, supposedly, so keep an eye on that, as this could just be propaganda, but I doubt they would be able to completely fabricate a story about running over some sort of small explosive smoke bomb, something like that. Russia launches Patriot missiles at Ukraine after Zelensky visits recently retaken city, not to be confused with the Patriot missiles from the U.S. This was an odd headline out of NBC. Russian cruise missiles struck central Ukraine Wednesday, hours after President Vladimir Zelensky visited the recently retaken city of Izyum. And we learned a couple interesting things in this article. Ukrainian officials said 8 missiles struck the central city south of Kharkiv, targeted critical transport infrastructure facilities, including a dam. Several cities remain without running water. Hopping down into the article, the Center for Defense Strategies said one single Russian unit that was surrounded in Izyum left behind apparently 39 T-80 tanks, 35 infantry fighting vehicles, known by the acronym BMPs. Another unit left behind 47 tanks and 27 armored vehicles. I don't know about that. 2 people were killed, 3 injured after Russia attacked Mykolaiv with S-300 missiles overnight. Settlements near the front line remain under constant fire. 3,000 families are unfortunately without electricity. They're citing only 3 people have been injured over the past 24 hours. That's probably a very low ball, but mobile internet in the region has been shut down. UK backs Ukraine's claim it downed Iran-made drone used by Russia. Here they're tit-for-tatting that, they're under sanctions. They shouldn't be having drones in Ukraine, even though we covered last week that Russia had bought, over 200, 300 of them. Interesting that it looks like it's going to be a trade because, yes, we were talking about this last week, the Shahed 136, so-called suicide drone capable of carrying a warhead over a long distance. U.S. imposed sanctions on Iranian company accused of coordinating military flights to transport Iranian drones to Russia, as well as 3 companies it said were involved in the production of the UAVs. So that just proves that Iran is deploying them, or I should say Iranian-made drones are being deployed in Ukraine. Drone base located in Iran had officials from Russia, Belarus, and Armenia in attendance, and that's important because Russian delegation of 80 large companies are visiting Iran next week. And this is where things get interesting with the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Again, Russian delegation of 80 large companies are set to visit Iran next week as the Islamic Republic signed documents pertaining to its full membership in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which is due to take place in the near future. Russian leader said Moscow was very happy and Iran would soon join the Eurasian Political, Economic, and Security Organization, which brings together China, Russia, India, Pakistan, and 4 ex-Soviet Central Asian countries. Moscow and Tehran's stances are close or coincide on many international issues, saying the interregional ties are developing. We are actively cooperating on the international arena, and on many points, our positions are close or, as diplomats say, coincide. That's from Putin. Cooperation makes U.S.-sanctioned countries stronger as they find ways to circumvent sanctions and form the new version of the BRICS G7, if you will. Iran, one of 4 SCO observer states, applied for full membership in 2008, but its bid was slowed as a result of the sanctions imposed by the United Nations and U.S. The SCO was founded by China, Russia, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan in 2001 and currently forms the world's biggest regional market with 8 official members and 4 observer states, which brings us into this. Erdogan urged to end war in Ukraine, but that's not really what this article is about. Addressing the 22nd meeting of the Council heads of the State of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, Turkey maintains fruitful cooperation with the United Nations and the parties for the shipment of Ukrainian grains, Erdogan said, adding that Ankara also exerts sincere efforts in order for the grain to be delivered to those who need it most, particularly in, you guessed it, United Nations. Said last week we covered there was going to be severe food insecurity, aka famine, starvation, death. Anyway, grain to be delivered to those who need it most, Africa. Also held talks on September 16th today with other leaders attending the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit. Erdogan said, noting that his country has thousands of years-long social, cultural, and political ties with Asia, as he plays both the West and, I guess we'll say, the East. Turkey had assumed the term presidency of the SCO's high-level group on energy in 2017 and said, quote, "We stand ready to further strengthen our dialogue with the Shanghai Cooperation Organization regarding the issues concerning our mutual security." So again, keep an eye on that region as Turkey, Russia, China, Iran, India, and many other countries all become closer. Turkey supports the efforts aimed at global food security through its initiatives with the G20. So that's what I mean by playing both sides. Turkey's position as a bridge between the East and West, there it is from the horse's mouth, offers opportunities, Erdogan said. "We will continue to contribute to the ongoing political and economic process within the Shanghai Cooperation Organization." So China is doing a lot of things in the background. Also, Turkish news, defense chief unveils video of Turkey's first armed unmanned surface vessel for the oceans. Armed drones named the Marlin. It's the first unmanned surface vehicle with electronic warfare capability in the world. They're claiming, I guarantee the United States is a little bit ahead there, but we'll let him claim that win. With a length of 15 meters, can participate in surface warfare, underwater warfare, electronic warfare, asymmetrical operations, which ties us into the NATO exercises we covered yesterday. The Marlin invited the NATO exercise to be held in Portugal this month, thus Turkey will undertake special tasks in its own classification, such as underwater surface reconnaissance, surveillance, intelligence, electronic warfare, target detection, identification, support for amphibious operations. And to wrap this up, Senate advances $6.5 billion for the Taiwan military aid bill, as again, people continue to struggle all around the world, and we continue to fund not only the Ukrainians, but we are now funding Taiwan. This is unaffordable, unsustainable, and is only going to make inflation worse. I could rant about this for a long time, but we're going to wrap this video up here. If you guys found anything of interesting, please leave a comment down below. Any thoughts, comments, concerns, leave a like, and hit the subscribe button. I'll see you guys in the next one. Happy Friday.